Hi, my name's Dante St. James, and I'll be taking you through this particular webinar on an introduction to e-commerce. We won't be going down deep into the depths of how to start up your own multi-million dollar drop shipping empire, but what we will do is look at some of the options you have for going into your first e-commerce business, whether that's through an e-commerce partner like Amazon or eBay, or going down your own path through Shopify or BigCommerce or one of those kind of platforms, or it might even be using what we call conversational commerce, which is on social media. So let's get underway and get you shared into the screen so you can, I guess, see what the possibilities are when it comes to e-commerce for your particular business or setup. Let's go. First, a quote from Jean-Paul Argot, the former CEO of L'Oreal. He said, e-commerce is no longer the cherry on the cake, it's the new cake. It's become the core way that so many businesses now are selling. It's not just an add-on, it's not just an addition to what they're already doing. It actually has taken over a lot of what they were doing in the first place. What we're going to look at is e-commerce business models, the platforms you can use, who e-commerce is actually for, some of the pros and cons, the starting up process, choosing a product, which is very important to know what product you're going to go with, sourcing that product, and a little bit about budgeting as well that we'll discuss, and the things you need to, I guess, look at, that even though you might be saving money on shop fronts and premises, you may still have to spend some money on products, people, and postage. First of all, this is brought to you by Business Station and the Australian Small Business Advisory Services Digital Solutions Program, delivered by the Australian Government with Business Station in WA, Regional Development Australia, Brisbane and Queensland, and Treaty Business Consulting in the Northern Territory. Myself, I work with my own digital agency called Clickstarter, my own training agency under my name, working with the government's new Business Assistance with NICE program, ASBAS Digital Solutions and Be Connected, as well as Google's Digital Springboard program, Treaty Business Consulting in the Northern Territory, and Facebook's Boost program, which I was just down in the Central Coast of New South Wales yesterday, flew back in late last night to my home in Darwin to be able to do this particular webinar with you today. I'm glad, because the Wi-Fi in the hotel was not great. I tried, it wasn't great. So when we're looking at the kinds of e-commerce business models you're looking at, we're looking at how you plan to make money. So those business models can be based around the fact that not all stores are the same. Not every single store that's operating on Shopify or WordPress's WooCommerce or any of those kind of platforms is going to be the same as every other store. They're going to have some vast differences between them. And a lot of that's going to be based around, what types of products they're going to be selling, whether they're selling physical products or maybe digital products or even affiliate products. And there's a bit more information on that to come. Who the products are actually sold to. Is it business to business, business to consumer, or even business to government? And where the products are sold on, whether they're sold on individual websites, they're sold on marketplaces like Amazon and eBay, or whether they are sold on what we call conversational shopping. So that's a lot to do with Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and Snapchat as well. Moving through this very fast so far. So let's look at the types of products that are sold. The first type is a physical product. Now, physical product is holdable in your hand. Digital products, downloadable products, services, and then affiliates. We'll look at these a little bit more closely. So physical products are very tangible. That's the obvious thing. I can pick up this bottle of water and hold it in my hand, and this is a bottle of water that will be shipped to me and delivered to me. It tracks postage, all that sort of stuff. It's shippable is generally the kind of thing that we look at when, say, you're trying to hook something up with Facebook shops. If you're looking to go Facebook or Instagram shops right now, they are only available to people who are selling a physical product. So if you were selling this mug, coffee is still way too hot for me to drink. Oh, that was going to scald my lips, something chronic in there. So if you're selling a physical product, that's your gateway into selling through conversational stuff like your Instagrams and Facebook shopping and shopping tags and product tags and that kind of thing. When we move beyond physical products, we are looking then at the magic of the digital product. These are downloadable things that are systems, software as a service. And often when you pay your money to get in, or you do a trial or something like that, it's an immediate result. You're immediately in the system and you can use the product straight away. You can read it if it's a digital book, listen to it if it's an ebook, things through like Audible or through any sort of download site. that's a digital product. Even something like Netflix. Netflix is a downloadable product as well. It is a product that is digital. It's not delivered by shipping. It's actually delivered straight to you, often through an app or through your web browser as well. And next we have the services. This is basically where you're selling your time for money. So it often involves things like booking systems, Calendly and Timely and other systems like that, where people are just basically booking you to get hold of your time. So for instance, when I'm doing one-to-one appointments through the ASBAS program, what we're talking about is selling an hour of my time for whatever the ASBAS money is that I make then. So I'm doing a form of e-commerce through services, I suppose, and any sort of different kind of services I offer, even if it was something like, can you design my logo, something like that. So I'll be selling my time, it takes me, and my expertise, it takes me to design a logo, and that then would be what I'm selling. That will be my digital product. And often a digital product doesn't require any sort of in-person engagement or any sort of in-person face-to-face meeting. So we don't necessarily have to be in the same town or even the same country to be able to do business. So it's like, for instance, when someone in India is selling website design, they can sell that to someone anywhere in the world, because it's basically the ability for them to be able to deliver something through the magic of Zoom, like we're doing right now, through Teams, through email, through chat communications. It doesn't necessarily require in person, but you will find there's services that actually do. So things like if you're ordering a massage, there's no such thing as a virtual massage. That's not a thing. Then you have to see people in person. So whilst it's not necessarily in person, a service can be something that's done in person as well. And our final one is affiliates. So for instance, occasionally I will sell an affiliate program for a piece of software that I use all the time that I thoroughly recommend that people use. And I will get a kickback for that new sign up for that software. And usually the person who I'm referring in gets a discount to start as well. So it's in the form of commissions. So you get paid a certain amount for a new sign up or a new person, or it could be in the form of referrals. So you refer people through and there's some kind of incentive for you to refer people through. So that could be coming from an e-commerce website. It could be coming from an update, like a booking for a discovery call where you then put someone onto a system. That's how Infusion software, or Keep, it's now called, works. You have an initial onboarding. For instance, the digital currency coin, COIN, is a bit of a commission and referral thing. So somebody is my upline with that. It's not a network marketing scheme, but there is sort of an upline, I guess, is the person who referred to me. So the person who referred me then gets a certain bonus for bringing me into the system. And then there's influencers as well. So influencers are people who can sell often products that are linked to other people's stuff that are tagged into, say, Instagram posts. So you can tag your own products in Instagram when you've got commerce managers set up through Facebook and Instagram. And then influencers then can become somebody who is doing a paid partnership with a certain business who can then insert product tags into that post as well. So influencers are a form of e-commerce as well, even though they're not necessarily what you traditionally think is e-commerce, which is basically selling an item through a website. Now, maybe we're talking about some of the things that it all refers to, and some of that is who the products are actually sold to. Now, three main areas that you'll be selling software to is business to consumer, and business to government. Let's look at those a bit more closely. So B2B, business to business, is where your customer is basically another business. So whilst you will be selling that to an individual at that business, what you also are doing is selling to a person. So you're selling to a person, so you're still sort of in that appealing to somebody as a human being, but they're ultimately not buying it for themselves, they're buying it for their business. An example would be, I'm going to buy a computer. I can walk into the Apple store somewhere in Australia that has an Apple store. I don't have one in Darwin, so I'll have to go for a bit of a flight to go there. And then what I'll do is I'll walk in and I'll go, okay, what are you looking for? I say, I'm looking to buy a new MacBook Pro. And they go, okay, so you want a new MacBook Pro. What do you need it for? I said, well, my business is, and the minute that that sales rep hears my business is, they go into a business to business mode. So what they're trying to do is not to appeal to my emotional attachment to Macintosh, or to my emotional attachment to my iPhone, or to my AirPods, or any of the myriad of other Apple products and services I've got in my life right now. They will appeal to more of a logical solution to a problem I might be having. And so their line of questioning could go down the path of, and this is an in-person person, this isn't before we even get to e-commerce. There's actually plenty of ways that this can be replicated through e-commerce as well. So what will happen is this person will then ask me questions about, such as, what are some of the things you come up against every day? And I say, well, one of the things I come up against with my old computer is, if I've got lots of tabs open in Chrome, I find that, the computer runs like an old lame dog. It just doesn't seem to work. I find it really, really difficult to be able to get anything out of it. And they're like, okay, so then what you probably need is a MacBook Pro that's actually got a higher processor and lots of extra RAM. So let me point you over to our M1 MacBook Pros, which have 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is probably all you're going to need because these new processors are super, super duper fast. Great. Point me in that direction. Let's have a play. Oh, it's zippy, it's snappy. Let's pick that up. Now, the process of that going on with business to business through a website, for instance, is simply when you go, are you shopping for yourself or shopping for your business? It's like going to a website and splitting it one of two ways. By doing that, you then qualify the person as someone who's buying it for business or buying it for themselves. Now, people who are buying for themselves tend to be a lot more price conscious. Businesses are too, but people are particularly price conscious because they know that they're buying a personal thing and it's not something that's necessarily going to make them money. So the logic seems to go out the door a little bit, and we tend to be influenced more by emotional feelings towards the thing that we're doing on that computer. And the fact that it might connect us better with our grandma who's currently in the UK and we can't go and see them due to COVID. So we need to communicate through a very good computer that's going to maintain a really good active connection. Otherwise, if we're looking to go, okay, you're a business, then the whole focus is a little bit different. Quite often there's discounts for business because of the potential volume of buying that a business may do. So they might ask you a question such as, how much would you spend a year on technology? How many individual technology items would you buy every year? These cheeky little questions to kind of get an idea of how valuable a customer are you going to be to us? This is all the process of e-commerce as well. When I go to Apple's website, I get asked very similar questions. When I go to any website that's selling anything that could be either a business or a personal product, I tend to get these questions that qualify me as a customer. Even if I'm definitely going through the business stage of things, I'll still get qualified as a customer as to what kind of customer for a business am I? Am I a large business, a small business, an enterprise buying for government? So they know to apply the specific discounts or the specific compliance questions that often come from businesses of a certain size. So your customer in this case definitely is another business, even though you are selling it to a person, they're representing a business. Next up, though, is the business to consumer. This is the easy one. This is selling Mars bars to teenagers who are hungry. This is selling, bath bombs to women who work too hard and want a luxurious experience at the end of the day. This is selling shoes to athletes. It's selling a specific product to a specific person, or it could be selling a service to a specific person. So what we tend to find is there's lots of selling techniques and tricks and tips that come with the process of selling to a person as opposed to selling to a business, because this person is making a personal discretionary purchase based upon their disposable income that may be limited. They're going to be very subjected to influences in different ways to buy different things. Some of those things on a B2C website, particular things like upsells. Hey, if you liked this book, you may like this book. If you bought this particular foundation, you might like this eyeshadow. If you bought this particular pair of shoes, you might want this sports bag to go with it as well. So we'll make those in that rush of buying things online. We can be very easily convinced to buy into like extra stuff. Whereas a business buyer, because they're buying for their business, they've got a specific budget and a specific thing they're buying for, are kind of almost immune to that kind of buying. Unless it's me, of course, and I'm just going on there wanting to buy one thing and I walk away with 15 things and going, why have I got no money in my bank account this month? What's going on there? So your individual customer is an individual person when it comes to B2C. And then business to government is a whole other level where you're supplying to a government agency or department. Quite often they have to go through a portal that's very separate. They have to have purchase orders that you need to respond to be able to get paid. Invoicing is involved. It's not often the same thing as simply putting up a credit card and putting it in. Often government procurement procedures that you'll need to go through. So therefore you might find that if you're supplying consumable objects and consumable products and fast moving consumable products to government, let's just say in terms of toilet paper for the toilets and coffee cups for their kitchens, that kind of thing, then you will go probably through a procurement process, and that will be judged on whether you have a specific price that you're selling to them as a volume buyer. And then you'll have maybe a special part of your website just for them to log into, where they get their product selection, their prices, and everything works in a way that works with their purchase orders. So they're not generating basically, okay, pay now with your credit card. They're generating an invoice. So then they pay that invoice, and depends on where you are in Australia, what government you're dealing with. I know in the NT government, it's 20 days is the payment terms. So you wait 20 days until your bill's paid, and everyone's happy, and we move on, and we're happily doing what we want to do. Now, not many of us are going to be selling to government in this respect. The next dependency then, when it comes to this whole e-commerce debacle, is where the products are being sold on. And three main areas you're going to find of where products are sold on is branded websites, marketplaces, and conversational. Now, in the non-digital world, the equivalent here with a branded site would be a shop on the main street in town. A marketplace would be a shop that you put inside a major shopping center, like a Westfield shopping town or a shopping square or something like that. And then the conversational would be literally having someone over to your house to sell them Tupperware. That would be very conversational commerce. But in the digital world, we look at this a bit differently. We look at branded sites, first of all, being your very own website with your very own brand on it, and it's under your control. So the beauty of this is that when you've got your own control, you can make it look like you want to make it look. You ultimately have control of what the inventory is on there. You can pull products out, you can put new products in, you can set up the flow through the website and the way that people buy in a very specific manner. You can choose whether people pay by credit card, by invoice, by bank transfer, via whatever method you want, Afterpay, Zip Pay, all those different options. So what you're looking at then is your front door to the world. And your front door to the world does not have to be, for instance, on a system like Shopify or BigCommerce, which are a self-hosted store. These are designed to be stores that are really easy to set up, really fast to set up, and they're hosted already on a system that's all in one. So you can buy your domain name through them. You can have your web hosting is through them as well. You can't take your Shopify site to another provider to host it. It's actually all built into Shopify as an all-in-one system. Same with BigCommerce. And these are the four biggest of the commerce tools that you've got. You've got Shopify with big S. You got Magento, which is the orange one. Magento is the smallest by quite a long shot of these four here. WooCommerce, which is the purple one, that is actually the biggest shopping cart in the world. More sites are on WooCommerce than probably, I wouldn't say all of these combined, but I'd say it's probably about twice the amount that are on WooCommerce that are on, or actually about 7 times the amount on WooCommerce that are on BigCommerce, and about 50 times the amount on WooCommerce that are on Magento. BigCommerce is a great all-in-one system with a lot of analytical tools and a lot of integrations with other systems. Like Shopify, it's an all-in-one. You sign up for the BigCommerce product, you get your website hosted, you have the themes that are in there, you can fiddle around with the themes, change them around, add products, withdraw products, add discounts, put in product codes, have SKU numbers, connected through to point of sale systems in physical shops, all that sort of stuff in exactly the same way as something like Shopify or Magento or WooCommerce as well. The biggest differences in these platforms would be, I'd say, that they have very, very different interfaces. So Shopify is considered to be one of the more simple ones to set up, and it's very wizard based. Okay, what do you want to do? I want to create a new product. Great. What's the name of your product? Okay, do you have photos of your product? Great. What's the description you want to show of your product? That's awesome. Do you have different sizes or different colors? Yeah, I do. What sizes do you have and how many are in stock? So it prompts you through the process of creating. It's a great system. Probably my favorite of them all. Then there's WooCommerce, which is sitting in the back of an existing WordPress website. Pros and cons here. This allows you to build a gorgeous website that handles all the other stuff aside from just your shop. So for instance, if your shop is a bit of a side to what you do, it's not the core of what you're doing, using a WordPress website allows you to create a very beautiful front for not just your shop, but for your business as well. Particularly if the online sales is like an addendum to your business, it's not the core thing that you do. So for instance, for me to have a shop on my WordPress website would be to sell something like a white paper, a report, or a very quick assessment, something like that someone can be then given to download. But then the issue would be that it would be very confusing for someone who was coming into my site for the first time if they walked in and got to, say, a Shopify shop. A Shopify shop is all about putting products, physical products often, right at the center of it all. So you've got all that right up front, right where you need it to be. So it's one of those really helpful things you want, where it's going to be like pretty much taking you straight to the sale. WooCommerce, being in WordPress, doesn't necessarily have that. You can set it up to do that, but you can have anything else at the front as well. Magento, look, I don't really recommend it all that much, to be honest, because it's really hard to get support. The people who really like Magento are the people who build Magento sites. I have not had many people come across me and say, oh my goodness, I have a Magento site. It is amazing. It does so well. It's so easy to use. It's not, and it's hard to develop for, and developers like it because developers like anything that's going to take on time and detail to build. And they'll go, oh yes, but it's so much more secure and so much more intuitive. It's like, for you as a developer, that might be the case, but for the end person who's trying to build a site on their own, Shopify, WooCommerce, BigCommerce are probably the ones you're going to find the easier way of doing, even though there is definitely going to be a learning curve for them all. Your marketplaces, however, they're a little bit of a different deal, because marketplaces are a collection of lots of stores in one site. So it could be something, for instance, where you are trying to sell, let's just say you're wanting to sell handicrafts. So you want to sell handicrafts. You could sell it on your own website where you are the only person who's selling anything on that particular website. You could sell it on social media where you're kind of in control of the posting that's on your particular Facebook page, for example. Or you could then sell it into something like a marketplace. Now, a marketplace is like going and putting yourself in literally a market. So you know that people are already going to be there. There's already foot traffic there. Then what you want to do is make sure that people can see your stuff. So you might go, okay, I'm going to set up a really good stall here full of really good products that are really compelling for people at this market to come to. Problems being that sometimes those markets get rained out, which is not going to happen online, obviously, with Amazon or eBay or any of these guys. But you may also find that there might be 3 other people selling what you sell. If you make scented candles and soaps from scratch, there might be 7 other stalls that are doing that, unless they've got some sort of exclusivity. When it comes to Amazon, eBay, Wish, Etsy, especially on Etsy, and through AliExpress, you're going into a very competitive situation because you're not the only person doing what you're doing. You may say, oh, but I'm the only person using unique indigenous bush foods in my ingredients. That's fine. I can guarantee you there's going to be other people who are using bush food ingredients as well. Or I might be I'm the only person supplying it from an organic farm in Northwest WA. That's fine, but you're going to be selling against a lot of other people who are selling it from organic farms in other places in the world. That's the strength of the marketplaces, is for the consumer. It's a great experience because they get to shop around and get the thing that they want to get. What they don't seem to get is that it's actually really hard for you, the trader, the merchant, to find your point of difference when you're up against 50 other people who are selling your same exact essential oil mix. Then you're going to be having a lot of trouble with the person who's on top. It might be the person who's advertising the most who gets on top. It could be the person who's got the cheapest price that ends up on top. And things like Amazon and eBay, you'll notice a bit of a shock on them, are pretty much almost like a race to the bottom. Who's going to be able to sell that thing in the biggest volume at the lowest price? So the person who can buy it all at the cheapest rate and then ship it out at the cheapest way are going to be often the ones who do the best at it. This is why people really struggle in Australia to sell products on Amazon and eBay. So I don't know whether you've noticed, the postage in this country is a little on the higher side. It's a little hard to sell products that are already sort of in some kind of competitive price before we then add on the shipping to that. If we're going, okay, I can take a $5 profit on this particular bicycle part that I'm sending out that I've got a lot of, but then when I post it, it's going to cost me $50 to get it to somewhere in Australia. Like, well, suddenly this $25 part has become $75. And so what will immediately happen is that person will go across all those other places like Amazon and eBay and Wish, and they'll look for the same thing, but cheaper. And they'll inevitably find themselves buying it from a supplier in China, Vietnam, Russia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, the Philippines, anywhere that has way cheaper postage than we do. We have remarkably expensive postage here. America's is pretty much a fair bit lower than ours as well. So things posted out of the US is going to cost someone to post that bike part from Denver, Colorado, about the same amount to get to you in Brisbane as it's costing someone to post it from Melbourne to Brisbane. That feels weird, doesn't it? So it's a very one-way street when it comes to this. So what people will do is do a thing called drop shipping, so that they'll actually have either a supplier that then directly ships it out from China or where it happens to be manufactured to places in the Western world, such as Australia or New Zealand or the UK or Europe. Places where it's too expensive to produce that product and make it cheap enough to buy, and also too expensive to post that product. So instead of you having to buy 75 pieces of this bicycle and then stocking it all in your garage, taking up all that space, potentially expanding out into a storage unit as well, and having all the problems that go with having stock on site, and instead it goes directly out to the manufacturer, wherever that happens to be. Advantage, of course, is lower costs of shipping. Disadvantages is going to be you don't have as much control over the experience. Now, if you're selling a beautiful product like jewelry, or you're selling something like skincare products, or you're selling something like scented anything, let's just say soy wax melts, for instance, you may want to put it in a special pouch with a bow around and a little thank you card. You're not going to get that through your drop shipping in China. They're basically going to get something that's packed in a box or a little bag and it's shipped off in the cheapest possible way that they can, unless you're of course paying someone to provide that extra service over there. But that then it's going to then start pushing that cost up. Every time someone has to touch something, the cost goes up a little bit more. Now, on places like Amazon, you can also do a thing called Fulfilled by Amazon. This requires you to have enough stock in Amazon's warehouses to service that country. So what will happen is that in, say, India, if you want to ship out let's pick something off my desk, a hand sanitizer to India. So Australian-made hand sanitizer, I think it's Australian-made. Yes, it is Australian-made and owned. You can ship this out but it needs to be in all 6 distribution centers in India so that it can reach every part of India relatively inexpensively. So what it means is you've got to produce a lot of stuff. There's going to be shelves that are on Amazon's warehouses in those 6 locations around India full of your product, and you've got to keep supplying it. So it usually means you've got to put a lot of that product up front. You've got to go, well, I've got to buy, 3,000 units of this hand sanitizer. And for hand sanitizer, probably a lot more. You probably need to put 3,000 units in each center in India. And then you want to sell that through Fulfilled by Amazon in America. They got a lot more than 6 centers in America. I tell you, they have got dozens of them. So you would need to put it in certain amount of those centers to get to those particular markets quickly, because Amazon likes to deliver things either same day, when it's a very small consumable item that's locally delivered, or within a 2-day period. They have a very similar setup in Australia, where they've got warehouses in Sydney and Melbourne that ship things out very, very quickly to all over Australia, using things like the freight services through Star Trek. I think mine comes through Star Trek, through Australia Post and Star Trek. And soon they'll have, they're setting up their own freight delivery airlines to get things around America, particularly, and to other parts of the world now. When it comes to eBay, it's not quite so simple. They don't have quite that complexity for setup for traders, but it is a very complex place for people to buy and sell and find things they want to buy in a simple, quick way. Wish, if you've ever used it, it's a bit of a dumpster fire. It's just rubbish, absolutely rubbish. I've actually had to delete it from my phone because I kept buying rubbish and being disappointed with it. Although buying some little electronic accessories, such as, I haven't got it here on my desk, but it's like adapters. You buy little adapters for a lot less than going to the Apple store to buy that adapter. So for instance, if I needed to buy this adapter, right, that connects through different kinds of things to my MacBook Pro, I could spend $90, $90 at the Apple store, or I could spend $8 on Wish, and it's $1 postage, $9 ahead of $90. Now, I don't have the guarantees and all that, but so far so good. They might fall apart a bit easily, but at $9 to send me each, damn it, I'll just buy a few of them. So I've got a bunch of them if they ever break down. In fact, this camera that you're seeing me through right now is actually one of those things I bought from Wish. So it's actually been a very good purchase, but there's a lot of rubbish in there as well. So you might want to be aware that if you're going to go into marketplaces, there are definite pros and definite cons. And if you're selling handcrafts on Etsy, get ready to pay to promote your particular shop, and pay to promote your products to get them through, because otherwise you're just not going to sell anything. It's really rare for people to get on and make their millions from Etsy unless they've got a large amount of money to spend on ads within Etsy itself. Wow, it sounds like I'm really anti-marketplace. Well, I'm actually not. I think they're a great way to sell stuff, but you have to have a lot of your ducks lined up ready to go with that. So with conversational commerce, then we're talking about social media: Facebook, Snapchat, Pinterest, Instagram. These are social media networks that have enabled selling on their platforms. The examples for us in Australia is particularly with Facebook and Instagram. Those two have used the Facebook shops that then link through to your shop. Now, in those cases, you have to have your own shop. You have to have your own website that can do the checkout for you. In America, though, you can sell stuff directly through Facebook and Instagram, so that all it does is does all the payments, it does all the updates, the shipping updates, all through Facebook and Insta, and then you just post the product out to the person, and the money comes into you via Facebook. It's an amazing system. Of course, in Australia, we've got a few more financial rules than America does. We're a bit more cagey about the kind of things we allow different businesses to do when it comes to taking online payments. So we want to make sure that things are safe and there's proper returns policies and all that. We're expecting Facebook Pay to hit in the next year to allow us to do a very similar thing. But in the meantime, it's not something we can do within Australia. We just need to have a Facebook shop or an Instagram product tagging shop, but it will be then connected through to your Shopify or your WooCommerce or your BigCommerce or your Magento, or wherever you're selling on your own website. Even something on Wix or Squarespace are just as good to be able to link that stuff through to. They're just not as closely integrated to Facebook and Instagram's algorithms. So what e-commerce platforms are there, and what should you actually do with them? Which ones should you choose? So the basic for me comes from that even if you're selling on Amazon, eBay, Wish, Etsy, AliExpress, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and Snapchat, you're still going to need an e-commerce platform like Shopify, Magento, WooCommerce, BigCommerce, even on Squarespace stores, even on Wix stores. It doesn't matter what the program is. Some of them are way, way better than others and have much more integration and features going on to make it easier for you, the seller, to operate your business. But pretty much any of these will work. Even Square Stores, which is through Weebly, which is it's a store that operates through the Square card readers that you can have at the markets. A lot of little cafes have them as well. That then is connected through to an account that can run your own e-commerce site as well. So they don't integrate as magically with everything else as other sites do, but they're also a lot cheaper to set up and run, and a little bit easier to set up and run as well. So you've got to have your own property before you can go onto all those other platforms to sell through marketplaces and whatnot. And the reason is, even though not all those platforms require you to have a website where you sell it yourself, they need to, you need to have a backup, because at any time, at any place, and I've seen it happen with so many people before with Amazon, they may be selling a particular kind or size of maybe a headphone, like a case for their AirPods. So AirPods, people who have AirPods for their iPhones, I've got the AirPods Pro, so they're expensive little earbuds, so you can hold up the camera. People will want little holders to put them in, so little covers to protect it, so it's nice and well protected and well looked after. The trouble with all that is, of course, though, is you're kind of going to get stuck with, you're going to get stuck with, excuse me, this is getting really bad. You'll get stuck with Amazon saying, hey, you just sold about 100,000 of those things. We know you're doing really well with that. What we're going to do is set up our own one. We're going to set up our own one of these, and we're going to make it so that you won't be able to sell yours anymore, because we're selling them now and we're going to make more money on it. And thanks for introducing this to the public, but we're selling this now. Thank you. Goodbye. And yeah, see ya. And that actually does happen. Amazon is a special at doing that all the time. eBay, not so much, because they don't do the fulfillment themselves, but Amazon does it quite often. Are there protections against you with that sort of thing? Absolutely not, because you're operating with their platform. So it's not like you're operating with a platform that is like something you can say, oh, well, this is mine, I've got some protections here. You're operating within their walled garden, within their world, within what they do. So you don't have any sort of comeback on that. So they can operate in complete and utter competition with you. And just sounding really horrible, the people who are hosting your sales and your marketing are also your competitor. So this is mainly an Amazon thing. This is not everybody. So you don't need to worry too much about it being something which is going to happen to you in a hurry. It's tending to be more so something that happens with Amazon when you sell high volumes at a low price of a particular product. They go, we can sell that high volume too. And the difference is we're going to do it as, we're going to do it better and cheaper and more options and get it there faster. And they'll get a discount because they've got Amazon Prime. So have your own website. You need your own property online. You cannot then be completely dependent upon everything that these platforms are doing, because they can change their mind about things so quickly. So who can start up an e-commerce store? Who is it for? Well, pretty much for anybody. But you do need to give yourself an idea that you have to have time to learn. You have to give yourself time to read a lot of stuff, to look a lot of stuff, to understand how these platforms work and how the logistics of getting a product from you to the world, or from someone else to the world, or from dropship to the world, or whether you need to make things, where you've got a whole business plan around things. You need to work that all out, and that takes time. So if you're going to do these kind of things on your own, you're going to decide you're going to take the very wise path of not letting somebody do your to put it all on a marketplace, for example. Then that's when you need to go, well, yeah, okay, I'm doing this thing, I'm doing it well, I'm happy with this. Now I can do it. It takes time to learn. You're going to have to set aside time. The difference between, I guess, paying someone else to do these things is it gives you a shortcut. You pay someone else, they get a shortcut. And then you go, oh yeah, that's fine. I don't have to worry about this, because now it's something which has gone really quick and they've done it for me and they showed me how to do it, and I don't need to learn anything because they've shown me. But if you're doing it yourself, as most small businesses should in their first time, you'll need to learn to work out this stuff for yourself. This is the way you're going to have to, work out what platform to use, work out how to use that platform, work out how to make your products in enough volume to actually make money on it, have to work out what is a profit level that works for your business and helps you to be able to actually live on this. And then working out all those little things that, that help you to get to the point where this thing is actually worth your time. So that's when we go, okay, this may not be worthwhile at all. So you do need to take that time to learn. You need patience to test things out. I can almost guarantee, and this sounds like a horrible thing to say, and I don't mean to turning you off this, and by no means, I'm definitely not trying to turn you off starting a business. It's definitely not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do, though, is give you the idea that you need to learn to not get too stuck on one idea that you're selling. You've got this amazing product that you source and you believe in it, and in your heart and your soul, you think it's the most amazing thing that's ever come along, and you want to sell that to the world because you think it could change the world. And you put it out there to the world, and the world don't want it. And that's a horrible thing to go with, because you feel like you've done so much work and you've got so much passion, and you're so disappointed that this thing just didn't work. And for all intents and purposes, you thought this thing was going to work, right? Yeah. And it doesn't. That's a really hard lesson to go through. It's a really hard thing to go through with, with people who are trying to set up some businesses they feel like that will change the world. The kind of businesses that will, have an impact on humanity. So what they'll need to do then is go, well, okay, what do we then do? What do we do in terms of, this product that we believed in, it's not selling. What do we do next? Do we double down on it? Do we spend more time on it, more money on it? Or do we pivot? And that's that magic word that came about in 2020 when businesses were finding they couldn't actually sell anything. They had to do this magical pivot thing. And the pivot thing was simply that they needed to learn how to excuse me, they need to learn how to move in another direction rather quickly to minimize the amount of losses that would come with them staying in that same pathway and doing that same thing. So what this meant is that they had to then learn how to then love and believe in another product. And that's a very hard mental thing to go through if you've got a very strong belief in the product you're selling. Now, I've got 2 e-commerce properties. I do not believe in or care about the 2 products I'm selling because they sell themselves. These are 2 products. One of them is a beauty product that I absolutely I've never even seen it, let alone used it. So, but I know that it sells. And for me to know it sells, and I go, yep, I've got no problem with that. I'm completely fine with this going out there to the world and not knowing, what it's really like or what it's going to do. Because basically, it's not something that really worries me all that much, really, particularly. So what I then do go is like, well, okay, if that's the case, I need to then, find something that I either believe in so I can put more effort into it, or just keep opening up shops that I don't necessarily have to believe in the product. I just have to believe that it's going to sell and it's selling, and I don't have to know much about the product. All I need to know is, okay, I know the pricing, I know how it works. Wacko, let's go sell some stuff. And in one of my cases, the beauty product, it's on a wholesale basis. So I wholesale it out to other people who then sell it themselves. So I never see the product, I never see the packaging, I've never sampled it. I just bought into a process which pays me a certain amount for every one of these wholesale amounts that I sell of this particular product. It's kind of one of those ideal ones that I came across, and then I bought the license for it. Now I've got it for the whole Asia Pacific region. And so it brings in a little bit of, not a huge amount, but a little bit of money for me every month that, helps pay one of my repayments, helps pay off the credit card, basically. So your ability to pivot is something that's going to be very important if you want to get into e-commerce, because simply that it's not something which you can get particularly attached to. You need to learn to work beyond the idea that you're going to, I guess, make your millions out of this thing that you so thoroughly believe in and love and cherish and believe to a point where you think it's going to change the world. The reality is that not every idea will. So you need to be able to pivot to something which is at least going to make you the money that's going to pay the bills. You don't have to believe in everything you do. You just have to do something and then move on to a point where you go, okay, now I'm ready to move on to to a new idea and a new kind of product. So we clearly know it's for you because you're a pivoter. What are the pros and cons of doing all this? The pros and cons of actually starting an e-commerce business are around the idea that you get to start something from scratch. It's yours. It's your idea. It's your business. You don't have a boss you have to connect with. You don't have someone you have to ask permission of. You just do your thing. And that's a beautiful thing to do because it allows you to go, this is my business, my thing. I'm doing it. No one else is. And I can, put in exactly what it is that I want to do with this particular business. So that's great. Let's do that. That's perfect. Then what we need to do is go, well, actually, am I selling global or am I selling local? And you've got the choice of that. And the beauty of selling global is that it's a way for you to go, wow, you know what, this is something I can do so clearly and easily. This is something I can do really, really well. This is something that can sell to anybody, anywhere. So I don't need to necessarily sell this to people in my local area. And suddenly that opens up a whole area of people who live in, say, regional areas. They don't have enough of local customers who will buy their stuff. So they go global and they sell this thing to tons and tons of it, like my beauty product that I sell. It goes to people all over in different countries pretty much from Myanmar right across through to Tahiti. Including Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, the Philippines, but I don't have China or Japan, which would be amazing if I could. They have their own markets, but I'm happy with the Asia Pacific at the moment, the APAC region, because that's really helpful for me to be able to sell a product. The pro is for an online business like this is you can add it to an existing bricks and mortar business. If you already have a shop that's selling scented products, scented candles, the reed stick diffusers, all that sort of thing, it's not that hard for you to turn into a click and collect location. So if local people do buy your product, they can buy it online and then come and collect it, or you can post it to people who are further afield. Be careful with this though, because remember, you're buying things at a level that allow you to sell this at a retail price. When you're selling at a retail price, you're then sort of stuck at a price point that you can't afford to move from, because even if you're selling that item online or in your store, you still have to pay rent on the location where everything is being stored in your store. You still have to pay for stuff. You still have to pay for electricity and keeping the lights on and the air conditioning running, all that sort of stuff. So just be careful that when you do add something to an existing location, like if you're a hairdresser, adding on wanting to sell your products that are in your store, do your salon to people directly, that people are not going to pay the full price for those products. They're going to look for a cheaper version of it. So it may be a complete waste of your time and money to build an online website that sells that kind of stuff. One pro, work from anywhere. I do that same thing. I'm actually moving my life towards that. Today I'm in my home in Darwin, but Saturday afternoon I'll be in, Saturday evening, sorry, I'll be in Brisbane. On Monday I'll be in Bundaberg in Queensland. So it's one of those things where I take my work with me, and that's because I've got a diversity of kind of things I can do remotely and things that I just don't even need to be anywhere in particular, like e-commerce. You can work on it as much or as little as you like. I put no effort whatsoever into my 2 e-commerce properties because they represent a percentage of, but not a high percentage of, my income. They are like a supplement. Like I said, it pays off my credit card bill each month to sell that one particular product. The other particular product, which has got to do with coffee grounds, that particular product, that would pay for my electricity bill per month, which runs at about, don't laugh at me, it runs about $500 a month. So it's a lot of money in the tropics to keep a place cool. So that sort of thing. So those things just pay for the things I need to pay for. So the stuff I make from all my other stuff from ASBAS Digital Solutions, that pays for my life. So work as much or as little as you like in those kind of businesses. And then the cons would have to be then that, first of all, there's no sense of place with your business. And a lot of people still prefer to deal with people up front. They like a relationship. They like to be able to talk to a person and be able to communicate with an individual. Whilst e-commerce has grown remarkably in recent years, particularly in the last 2 years, it's almost doubled. It still only represents 14% of all commerce in Australia. So whilst, it was 7%, a few years ago, but now it's 14%. No, I'm not necessarily expecting that to grow again to that degree. We had a bit of a jump start last year that made things a bit more desperate to sell online. But right now, at 14%, it's not the majority or anywhere near the majority of purchases made. So some people do require some sort of in-person experience. Another con is that there's massive competition. Once you go out online, you're not just competing with everyone in your town, you're competing with everyone in your state, in your country, in your planet. There are going to be people who are selling what you sell or things similar to it at a much lower price, at a much higher quality potentially too, and in much greater amounts. So you've got to do your research before you go into this to make sure that this business idea you have, this product you want to sell, actually has a market willing to pay for it, because the chances are that what you'll be selling will not be the cheapest of what that product is. It might be something completely and utterly different. Scaling up is a challenge, because if you do get successful, if you're selling, you start off and you sold 1 on your first day and you sold 20 on your 7th day. And then by the time it gets to December and you've got all those last minute Christmas gifts and all that, and you need to sell, 230 of those things a day, do you have the ability to produce or to source that product? So that scaling up can actually come against you when you've got a hot product that people love at a price that they're willing to pay, and a process that gets that to them in a nice, fast way, that then you've got a limit with things coming in. And we saw that, I guess, with the world shutting down over COVID and unable to get the supply lines out of other countries into Australia. So a lot of people who are selling amazing products couldn't actually get those products out to anyone because they couldn't get those products in the country in the first place. There was no ships coming in. The ports were all backed up. There were ships off the coast waiting to be unloaded. There were aircraft that are no longer coming to the country that previously were. And then also learning curve. You're going to have to spend some time to learn how to do these things in e-commerce. So how do you start? First of all, find an idea for your product. Make sure that that idea is then something that can be turned into a business, not just something that you love or something that you think is really cool. You've got to actually see if this thing is worth planning a business around, if there is a true business to be built around it. And then you sign up to some kind of e-commerce platform, whether it's a marketplace like Amazon and eBay, or whether you want to build your own through Shopify, WooCommerce, or BigCommerce, or Magento, or any other kind of online store. And that's pretty much what it does. There's no grand trick or tip that I could say that I can get started with. It'd just be find an idea that can be turned into a business, but make sure you're very, very honest about whether it can go into a business. Because once you actually sign up on an e-commerce platform, you're committing to time, you're committing to money for the charges for that, you're committing to the postage of those things. And if you're only selling 1 a week and it's costing you more than $500 a week to operate this business, yet you're only making about $25 off it, then it's that's not a business, that's a hobby. So you've got to understand that whether this is going to be a business or a hobby. Once you've started, it's about sourcing your product. So do you source the product from making it yourself, or do you get it drop shipped? Drop shipping is a very powerful way of getting it to go straight from the country or it's originated from. It's not pretty packaging. It comes looking ugly in the packaging, but it gets there fast, and it certainly does get there cheap. That's the basis of a lot of eBay. That's the basis of a lot of Wish. Pretty much all the Wish is all drop shipped stuff from China, really. And a bit of from Russia, I noticed too. I bought some things that came from Ukraine and Russia. It was really weird. And then there's the other thing, which is called arbitrage. Now, arbitrage is the process of you buying something at a low price in large numbers and then selling it at a higher price to other people. The example would be when Kmart introduces a new design of cushion and people are absolutely mobbing the store to get this cushion. You go and buy 50 of these cushions from different Kmarts around town because you can see in big cities that people are desperate for it. So in your small town, you go to the Kmart and buy all of them, right? Then you come home and then you advertise on eBay or on Amazon that you're now selling these Kmart cushions and you're selling them for $25 above the regular price. And there's enough demand out there that people will buy that. That's what we call retail arbitrage. Buy low, sell high. We saw that happen in COVID during the toilet paper debacle. People buying lots of toilet paper on special and then trying to sell it online at an inflated price because people got desperate for toilet paper. It backfires sometimes, as toilet paper did, as some other things will do. It will go the wrong way. So your budget then needs to be spread across things such as the product that you need to buy, the people you need to pay to deliver and to fulfill the orders, and then the postage. So you're not just looking at the cost of the subscription to Shopify. In fact, that's probably going to be the lowest cost you're going to accrue in this business. Your highest cost is going to be people, especially if they're in Australia. Your next highest cost is probably going to be the product itself. And then also packaging is another P that's not in there. Product, packaging, people, and postage. They're all P words. And that just means that you're going to have to make sure that you've got yourself in a position that you can afford those things, because they're going to cost you a bit of money. So are you better to communicate better the idea of your business to people so they're going to be able to buy the right thing through the e-commerce platform that you choose for them? Then you take the next steps, which is, if you'd like to, talk to myself or one of the other ASBAS Digital Solutions advisors about a first consult of how to get started on e-commerce for you. Then you can follow through and have follow-up sessions through a second consult or third consult at $66. But if you've never used a one-to-one session before with ASBAS, your first consult is absolutely free. And you can do that through asbas.com.au, which is on this next page. There we go. asbas.com.au. Get started. Go and book those in, and even book some more webinars if you'd like to. And feel free to reach out to me if you've got any questions about this at all. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I'm going to go grab some lunch, and hopefully you're going to enjoy some lunch too. I'm Dante St. James, and I thank you so much for joining me, and hope to see you in the next one.